What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through my Week 9 top 36 running back rankings. If you guys enjoy the video, smash the like button, subscribe. I'll also have the wide receiver rankings coming out later today. But let's just dive right into Tier 1, and I think we're in a really interesting spot at the running back position where I feel like, the RB1s feel really strong. You feel fine when you're getting into like the early to mid-tier RB2s, and then it feels like you really just hit a cliff. So hopefully you do have at least, a couple of these dudes early on in these rankings. In Tier 1, not going to go crazy in depth on these guys. They're obviously going to be locks in your lineup. We have Jonathan Taylor, just been an absolute monster. I mean, looks like the league winner for fantasy football. Then I've got Christian McCaffrey, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, and Derrick Henry. I do think we're going to be getting back to like the Derrick Henry you expected when you drafted him. Lamar Jackson looks very likely to play this week. Henry's already coming off a very strong week 8, 21 carries for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is a really nice matchup against the Dolphins. They're allowing the 5th most points per game to the running back position. Somehow that didn't lead to a big Bijan Robinson game, but I do think it will for Derrick Henry. And then the Ravens are expected to put up points, implied point total of 28.5, and then they're also 7.5-point favorites. So I do think this is another huge opportunity here for Derrick Henry. And moving into Tier 2, I think these guys are also going to be locks in your lineup in any like normal sized league. I've got Javonte Williams going up against the Cardinals, James Cook coming off a monster game in week 8, going up against the Chiefs. Tougher matchup, but still someone like on one of the best offenses in the NFL. He's got to be in your lineup. Then I've got my guy, Devon Achane. Despite not being in the best offensive situation, the man just continues to produce 19.6 PPR points per game. He's had a very high weekly floor, has not scored under 12 PPR points. And then on paper, this is a good matchup against the Ravens. I do think they've gotten a little bit healthier, but on the season, they're allowing the 4th most points per game to the running back position. And then Devon Achane is game script proof. He's someone who can, get a decent workload on the ground in a leading game script like we saw in week 8. But if they're trailing, he's also someone who can get super involved as a pass catcher, which is probably what he'll have to do here against the Ravens. Then I've got Kyren Williams going up against the Saints. The Rams have the highest implied point total this week, up at 29. They're 13.5-point favorites. I do think we're going to see a lot of the rushing attack out of Kyren Williams, a lot of touchdown upside in this game. Then I've got DeAndre Swift as my RB10 going up against the Bengals. Now, Swift has actually been really solid as of late. 15 plus PPR points in each of his last 4 games. But this is also just like an amazing matchup on paper. This Bengals defense is truly awful, and they're especially bad at stopping the run. They're allowing the most fantasy points per game to the running back position. But it's not just like by a small margin, it's by 5 whole PPR points per game. So I think this is a great spot for DeAndre Swift. I'm sure with his recent production, you'd still be firing him up anyway, but feel very confident playing him this week. Couple more guys in this tier. Got Josh Jacobs going up against the Panthers. Now, prior to the James Cook masterclass, the Panthers had actually been pretty decent at stopping opposing running backs. They were on a nice little stretch there against like some really solid names. That obviously ended with James Cook. Josh Jacobs is going to have solid usage on the ground in a matchup that's likely going to be pretty run heavy. I think it's going to be a favorable game script for him, and he's going to have a lot of touchdown upside. We did see Emmanuel Wilson, actually get some pretty solid run in the 4th quarter. Looks good. We'll see if he actually eats into Josh Jacobs' workload, but as of right now, I'm not super concerned. And then the last guy in this tier, Kamani Vidal going up against the Titans. I mean, this is a dude who wasn't even on their opening day roster coming into the season, and now he's in a tier with guys like Devon Achane, James Cook. Like, shout out to Kamani Vidal. He has made the most of his opportunities, and he is coming off a really strong week 8. 23 carries for 117 rushing yards and a touchdown. This is a great matchup on paper. The Titans are allowing the 3rd most points per game to the running back position. The Chargers are 10.5-point favorites. Could definitely be a favorable game script for Kamani Vidal. And even if Hassan Haskins is back, I still feel really good about Vidal. I do think he's just pulled away at this point as the clear-cut running back 1 for as long as Amarian Hampton is out. Now, looking at a pretty small tier 3, just 3 guys here. I've got Ashton Genty going up against the Jaguars. It'll be interesting to see what he looks like coming out of the bye week. He had started to build some momentum up until that week 7 game, which wasn't even really his fault. Like, they were just getting completely blown out. So He just didn't get the usage there. But so far, he's averaging 13.7 PPR points per game. A little bit concerning, but the Raiders are only 3-point dogs in this matchup. So expecting a somewhat competitive game. At least they're not going to get like their doors blown off, hopefully, here. So I think the usage will be fine. He's a nice, like, high-end running back to play. Then I've got Chase Brown going up against the Bears, and we saw by far Chase Brown's best game in Week 8, 25.5 PPR points per game. I want to say he actually doubled his, like, previous high in the season, which just goes to show, like, how rough of a year it's been for Chase Brown. And then on paper, it looks like a good matchup. Bears are allowing the 10th most points per game to the running back position. There is somewhat of a concern here with Chase Brown's usage, though, where you drafted him to be the workhorse of a really good offense. He looked like the clear-cut workhorse early on in the season, and then you lost the good offense part, right, with Joe Burrow going down. And Chase Brown continued to operate as the workhorse, but it just wasn't leading to anything. He had no touchdown upside. There was no efficiency. Then we see Joe Flacco come in, and the offense is actually running pretty well. They're putting up a lot of points. But now we're seeing Samaje Perine really cut into Chase Brown's usage, where Chase Brown only had a 60% opportunity share in that Week 8 game against the Jets. And that's not going to cut it, especially like moving forward when they're potentially getting into tougher matchups. Like, I still think Brown's a fine play this week going up against the Bears, just because I do think they're going to be able to put up points in this matchup. But it is somewhat concerning moving forward if that split between the two does kind of stick. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Jaylen Warren. Didn't have a great game against the Packers, kind of to be expected going up against that defense, but his usage was still really strong, which is what you want to see. And he was still fairly productive with his opportunities, had a 68% opportunity share. He does kind of draw a tough matchup again, where the Colts are bottom 6 in points per game allowed to the running back position. But the odds on this one are kind of weird. Like, I want to say the Colts are only 3-point favorites. Steelers are implied 23.25 points. So Vegas thinks this actually might be competitive. I think you just look at the way the Steelers have been playing versus the Colts. You think the Colts would just, win this one in a rout. But Vegas disagrees. I think that could be good news for Jaylen Warren here. Now, moving into tier 4, I still think these guys are fine plays, but it does feel a little bit sketchier than the guys we've already talked about. I'll start off this tier with Travis Etienne, and I kind of have a tough time figuring out what to do with him because he had a really strong start to the season. First 4 games, averaging 16.7 PPR points per game, and then he's really kind of fallen off over his last 3, only 8.3. Is this something that's going to continue? Is he going to look refreshed after the bye? We did kind of see that with DeAndre Swift, where he had a few really rough games going into the bye week. Since the bye, he has looked really good. Are we going to see more Bashal Tutin potentially coming out of the bye week? I think there's a lot of questions. The Raiders matchup doesn't really scare me. They are favored in this game. We had seen the receiving usage kind of climbing prior to the bye week. So at this point, I'll stay with Etienne as like a mid-tier RB2 play. After Etienne, this might seem crazy. I'm going to go with Bam Knight from the Cardinals going up against the Cowboys. Now, the sketchy thing about ranking a guy like Bam Knight here is that he doesn't have like this super established, locked-in workload. Coming out of the bye week, maybe the Cardinals just like completely shake things up. But this is a matchup I want to attack. The Cowboys are allowing the second most points per game to the running back position. The Cardinals are implied 25.25 points this week. And then you look at the last 2 games that Bam Knight has played in. He has seen 13 and 18 opportunities, and he's been the goal line back. If that usage sticks in this matchup against the Cowboys, I think Bam Knight is a very, very strong running back to play. Then kind of a depressing situation here. I've got Tyrone Tracy ranked at running back 18. That is obviously because Cam Scatterbo out for the season with that dislocated ankle. It really sucks. Just like a fun young player, really looked like potential league winner for fantasy. It was like everything you wanted at the running back position. He was like that big body goal line back, also a really strong pass catcher, really kind of injected some life into this Giants offense. He is now done for the season, but it does seem like Tyrone Tracy is the guy to roster here, the guy to play. We saw in that game, obviously all of this wasn't after the Scatterbo injury, but he had 12 opportunities to Devin Singletary's 3. I'm sure Singletary will have some involvement, but I think Tyrone Tracy is the clear running back 1 here. then a couple more guys in this tier. Got David Montgomery going up against the Vikings. He's been fairly boom or bust so far. He scored under 9 PPR points in 3 of his last 4 games. But I do think the matchup against the Vikings here is fine. The Lions have the 5th highest implied point total. I think game script is probably more important, where they're 8.5-point favorites. In these games where the Lions can build up a lead, I do think they'll rely on Dave Montgomery to kind of close it out a little bit more than like super competitive or trailing game scripts. And then the final guy in this tier, Woody Marks going up against the Broncos. I really like Woody Marks. I think he is a very good player. I think some people are probably going to want him ranked higher. I think the issue with Woody Marks is you just can't trust the week-to-week usage. He looked really good in week 8. 11 carries for 62 yards, 4 receptions for 49 yards, but he still only had a 44% opportunity share. And then this is just a tough matchup against the Broncos. They are bottom 10 in points per game allowed to the running back position. Also, just like the Texans are pretty low in terms of their implied point total. And like I said, I think Woody Marks is a very good player. If I was coaching the Texans, I would be seeing a lot more Woody Marks and a lot less Nick Chubb, but unfortunately I am not, and we're still seeing like dusty Nick Chubb go out there and take over 50% of the opportunities in this matchup. Woody Marks is also very game script dependent, where you could see a case here where maybe the Texans go up early and they're relying more on like the early down grinder in Nick Chubb. So hopefully we can get another solid game out of Woody Marks, but like I said, the usage is a little bit sketchy. Now looking at tier 5, going to start it off with Ramondre Stevenson going up against the Falcons. Despite Travion Henderson having a decent game, Ramondre still looks like the clear-cut running back 1 here. It's not pretty. He's not going to be super efficient on the ground, but back-end running back 2, fair spot for him. Then I've got J.K. Dobbins going up against the Texans. I got to imagine the Week 8 game was pretty brutal for J.K. Dobbins owners. You get a great matchup against the Cowboys. Dobbins plays really well. Like, I think he rushes for over 100 yards, gets a few goal line carries. He had a touchdown on the goal line where he ends up scoring, and the refs end up like prematurely blowing the whistle for forward progress. That was an issue on at least one other play this weekend with the Eagles tush push. So kind of a tough result. He still has a fine fantasy day. Like PPR is still respectable, but you were really kind of looking for a boom game going up against the Cowboys. Still had a 68% opportunity share. It's not a great matchup here against the Texans. They are allowing the 8th fewest points per game to the running back position, but he continues to handle a solid workload. Just honestly looks like a very good player, very efficient on the ground. So this is where I've got J.K. Dobbins. Then I have Alvin Kamara going up against the Rams. And Kamara's kind of just been brutal this year. Like, tough to say anything else. 10.2 PPR points per game. Back-to-back games under 7 PPR points. The Saints are all the way down at 15.5 implied points. And then the Rams are allowing the 2nd fewest points per game to the running back position. As I'm saying this, I'm wondering if I should even have Kamara in tier 5. But it just does seem like at some point they're going to get him involved as a pass catcher. That's why he's been so valuable in the past couple of years. It's not that he's been like a super legit running back or like still in his prime. It's just been that he's a PPR scam, and we just haven't seen that so far this season. We'll see what the quarterback situation is between Rattler and Shuck. But as of right now, I've got Kamara as like a back-end running back 2 play. And then the final player in tier 5 is going to be Rico Dowdle going up against the Packers. And the Rico usage has kind of been all over the place, where he gets the step up in opportunities with Chuba Hubbard out, puts together those 2 just like insane, historic, monster games. And we're not quite sure what the usage is going to be when he gets back or when Chuba Hubbard gets back in the lineup. It ends up being pretty much like purely a 50-50 split, where Chuba Hubbard gets the first drive, but then they pretty much just alternate drives, from then on in the game. And then we saw back-to-back weeks where Rico just continued to be the more productive running back. And then we got some comments from Dave Canales where it almost sounded like it was like the funeral of Chuba Hubbard, where like everything was in the past tense. He's done so much for us. We wanted to give him a shot. It looks like Rico's going to be the running back 1 here moving forward. Now, I don't think he's going to be like the workhorse that we saw in those 2 games without Chuba. I still think Chuba will get his fair share of opportunities, but I think it's going to be a lot better split than like 50-50. Maybe we're looking at like a 65-35 type deal between these two. The problem is just that it's not a great matchup to like get that huge workload in. The Packers are allowing the 3rd fewest points per game to the running back position, and then the Panthers are all the way down at 16 implied points. Now, moving into tier 6, this is where things start to get really gross. A lot of the players in this tier are just like 2 guys in the same kind of gross committee backfield. So I've got Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker back to back. I would like to hope that out of the bye week, we see more Kenneth Walker and less Zach Charbonnet, but I can't say I'm super confident that that happens. Charbonnet has just been like the ultimate goal line vulture, where Kenneth Walker will get them right down to the goal line inside the 5. All right, Kenneth Walker, you're out of there. Charbonnet comes in, scores the touchdown. I mean, we couldn't even get a Kenneth Walker goal line carry on the dude's birthday. So not feeling great about it coming out of the bye. But Sharp has just been like extremely inefficient, averaging under 3 yards per carry. I know some of that is because he is in on like the goal line stuff, the short yardage situations, but still, it's not great even when they're not near the goal line. And then for Kenneth Walker, in games with Zach Charbonnet, he's only averaging 9.5 PPR points per game. So Sharp missed, I think, week 3. Walker had a really nice performance. Outside of that, he's only had like one pretty decent game. Then I've got Aaron Jones. I'll actually talk about both Aaron Jones and Mason. Jones is my running back 27. Mason is my running back 30. I am expecting like at least the baseline to be pretty close to a 50-50 split. The reason why I prefer Aaron Jones this week is that the Vikings are 8.5-point underdogs. They're only implied 19.5 points. And so I do think this game script is going to kind of, skew in the favor of Aaron Jones, who's going to be more involved as a pass catcher. But I got to say, like, the Vikings offense looked like this really solid situation heading into the season. You could see Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, both coming in, being productive in a committee. But just the injuries on the offensive line, the questionable quarterback play, it is tough to feel excited about either of these dudes. I would hope we're getting to see J.J. McCarthy. Like, I can't say it's, I'm super optimistic about him coming in and playing well, but I just think like getting some development for this dude could be the best thing for this team in the long run this season. But both of these dudes are going to be like running back 3s for me. Then I've got the Titans backfield back-to-back, Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard. This might seem high for 2 guys, splitting opportunities in a really gross offense. But what I actually like about these 2 is that they both have pass catching upside. So it has pretty much been like a 50-50 split, but both guys have been pretty involved as pass catchers. The Titans have 16 implied points this week. It's not great, but like this is mid-tier RB3 territory. There's not going to be a ton of league winners in this range. I'm at running back 31. I have Michael Carter going up against the Cowboys. Cowboys allowing the 2nd most points per game to the running back position. Like I talked about with Bam Knight, they're 3-point dogs, so maybe we see more receiving usage out of Michael Carter. And then his last 2 games, 14 and 9 opportunities. 3 more guys in this tier. We've got the Chiefs backfield, and maybe it seems wrong to have like Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco ranked behind some of these like committee guys in different backfields. The Chiefs' run game is just not great, and you have no idea what to expect with these dudes. Like, if they went out and gave Brashard Smith 10 opportunities next game, I wouldn't be shocked. We see Kareem Hunt get the goal line usage in week 8, but then there's other games where he's just a complete non-factor and his like baseline usage is very, very low. So you're just kind of hoping for touchdowns. It is a decent matchup, like Bills are top 6 in points per game allowed to the running back position. And then for Isaiah Pacheco, like the opportunities have been there, 14.7 opportunities per game in his last 3, but hasn't necessarily led to great efficiency or production in the touchdown department. And then the last guy in this tier is going to be Bill Krosky-Merritt. It sucks to have him this low, but he has scored under 6 PPR points in each of his last 3 games. That includes 2 very favorable matchups against the Bears and the Cowboys. Now, I would feel a little bit better about him with Jaden Daniels back, but this is kind of the issue with just like this role that he was stepping into. Like, yeah, it's cool. He's this like, super late round rookie pick who came in, earned the starting job. But we have to remember what that starting job was. And that was like early down grinder on a team that's like not going to pass to that running back and has a quarterback or quarterbacks that are going to vulture near the goal line. So the upside I don't think was ever all that great for Bill Krosky-Merritt if he was going to be locked into like that Brian Robinson role. You're hoping like Daniels gets back, there's some efficiency here, and he can build on it moving forward. But tough to get super excited about Bill Krosky-Merritt at this point. And as I'm actually talking, I am strongly considering moving Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco up. I think I actually might bump them both ahead of Jordan Mason, also considering ahead of Tajay Spears. I guess it's just like if you're betting on a gross committee, you want a team that can put up points and score. So I'm going to bump those dudes ahead of Jordan Mason. I still do like the receiving floor of Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard. And then tier 7, these kind of guys are both like add-ons. I've got Kyle Monungai and RJ Harvey. I do like the matchup for Monungai, where like I talked about Bengals, clearly allowing the most points per game to the running back position. And then his last 2 games, he's had 16 and 7 opportunities. I could see the Bears leading this game and Kyle Monungai having like 10 for 50 and a touchdown. That doesn't seem like out of the realm of possibility. And then the last guy here, RJ Harvey, really strong game in week 8, 3 touchdowns, but the usage is still just like not there. Only 27% of the snaps, 8 opportunities. Maybe this was like the game where he could kind of show his splash play ability and get more involved, but I'm not super optimistic, especially in a game that's probably going to be more competitive against the Texans. And so that's going to wrap it up for my top 36. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button, subscribe. Stay tuned for the wide receivers. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.